Subscribe, hit that bell icon, and share this clip if you enjoy it. This is TRS Clips. I have a burning question in my head that's been burning for a bit now. You mentioned Antarctica.
Yeah.
So you've gone, you've lived there, you've traveled around. What's that land like? Like, what is crazy about it? What do you see? What are the experiences like? How cold does it get? all these questions. Like, just talk about it.
Yeah. So I've been very fortunate. I've been down to Antarctica 4 years in a row between 2011 and 2015. Because it's in the southern hemisphere, December is our winters, but it's their summers. So I've gone down in the summers. The reason for those 4 visits was on conservation campaigns. 2 were whaling related campaigns, 2 were fishing related campaigns. And so that was the primary motive, to go down on these old 50-year-old ships with a volunteer crew and go hunting for pirate ships and operations and fly helicopters and chase them and pick up their gear. So it was not just like a visit to Antarctica. It was also a very unique visit to Antarctica, because a lot of people get the chance to, let's say, go on holidays to Antarctica. So you leave, you get onto a ship or you get onto a flight, you fly, you go to one of the bases, you go see the penguins. But this was literally experiencing Antarctica in all its elements. Pushing through ice, standing right next to towering icebergs, sending people to dive under icebergs and, catching underwater life.
How do people go diving down there? I mean, is the gear like warmer or something?
Yeah, so usually if you dive in warmer waters, you wear something known as a wetsuit, which is just an insulation but doesn't keep the water out. When you dive in cold water, it's something known as a dry suit, which means it's completely sealed. You wear a lot of warm clothes inside and then you go. Your diving time is much lesser as well. I mean, it still causes a lot of numbness and things like that. Yeah, and saw the beauty on one side, like fascinating landscapes. In December, it's usually 24 hours of light in Antarctica. So you literally see the sun like just go around. It never rises and sinks. And so you have like orange, you have like beautiful sunrises and sunsets, in the sense that it's just long twilights. So the orange is like 5 hours. Then it's sunny, then it's again orange for 5 hours going down. Then in January, February, it starts getting dark for 2 hours, 3 hours. So you start seeing the southern lights, which is essentially the Earth's magnetism pulls light and it dances. People know the northern lights, so you have the southern lights. It's known as the Aurora Australis, which is the southern lights. So there's a lot of that you see. You're with a bunch of people who are from all across the world, all genders, all sexual orientations, just living on a ship, trying to make it through. If we had to extend our campaign, we'd be like, we have to switch off the heaters. So you're literally sitting in your room, like your breath like coming out of your mouth, completely vaporizing in the room, because the generator is just taking too much fuel, so you switch it off. So we've done things like that. Helicopters on board, like flying the helicopter 100 nautical miles from the ship. It was a tiny ship. I remember once this naval pilot came and he said, how do you land and take off a helicopter from this thing? It was completely designed by one of the crew members. So it was like pushing the limits of design, endurance, skill as well. Like, we very often think about people as being skilled because they've got a degree. But I think intention also builds a lot of skill in people. And the intention was, something's wrong, we got to solve it. We got to intervene. Jugaad. And yeah, total jugaad. In fact, jugaad reminds me, I built a fishing gear here of Wadala and shipped it to New Zealand, and that went to Antarctica on a ship as well, just to pick up fishing gear. Wow. So jugaad was definitely something that we did.
What's the apex predator in Antarctica, like in those ecosystems? I'm guessing orcas. Are they there?
Orcas are there. So Antarctica is so unique because it's known as a mixed ecosystem. So unlike a triangle that we think about where there's one species and it controls the whole ecosystem, it's very mixed. And the reason it's mixed is because of the ice that recedes and freezes. So when it freezes, the continent becomes bigger. And in the summers, when the ice melts, the continent kind of shrinks because you've got water, the ice becoming water. So what happens is, in that warming, a lot of lower species move up. And a lot of tropical species move down. Okay. So in the southern summers, you would say that the orca eats seals and toothfish and it's an apex predator. But when it's not there, that same toothfish is the apex predator of the deep seas. Toothfish.
It's like a shark?
It's actually a big fatty fish that is like no other fish. but it's got teeth and it's a predator of the deep seas.
Can it harm human beings?
Not really. It can't harm human beings because it's very slow moving, slow maturity. But the interesting thing is it's the world's most expensive fish
To eat.
to eat.
Have you eaten it?
I haven't eaten it.
Okay.
But I think 2 5-star hotels in Bombay serve it. I think Hakkasan serves it and then some other place. But yeah, it's like 2,500 rupees a small fillet of fish to eat. It retails for like quite a bit of money.
Just because it's fished from Antarctica. What do you think it tastes like?
It's meant to be really fatty and almost like salmon-y in the
Oh,
sense that it's that white flesh that separates easily.
Hmm.
So perhaps looks good with like beans and I don't know what people eat that with, but probably really fancy.
I don't know, dude. Like, I've always kind of been a little bit afraid of the ocean. Like, it's always scared me, you know?
Right.
I've gone diving in Seychelles. I've had some experiences with it. I love the beach, but there's just something that scares the shit out of me when it comes to the ocean. And then when I think of Antarctica, just as a place on Earth, it scares me because it's at the edge of Earth pretty much.
Yeah.
Is there any scary aspects to being there? Like, you know, does the weather get scary? Why am I scared? Or kill off my fear, Captain Sid. Like, why is it scary?
I mean, I think the ocean is scary because it's been told to us in history as a scary, dark place, right? Like we've got the Kraken, which is like this big monster that exists over there.
Do you think it exists?
I mean, I don't think so because we know big squids exist, which are Kraken-like. And we know that because now we study sperm whales and we know sperm whales go a kilometer or a mile under the sea. They catch one of these big things and they very often come to the surface and, you know, a tentacle of the big squid is hanging out of its mouth or it's in its poop, you know, remains of an octopus. Or I've seen footage in fishing gear where they are picking up this toothfish fishing gear and there's a giant squid just attached to the net coming up.
How big is it? Like, how big is when you say giant?
I mean, it's about 10 to 11 feet. So the head would be like the size of my torso. Just the head. Of a usual squid, the head's that much. So, and then the tentacles are about 10 feet. So across the length of an average room.
There's also something called a colossal squid, right?
Yeah, colossal squid.
Which is even bigger.
Which is bigger. And, you know, we've got now these remains of what these megafauna used to be. So we have this trend of animals becoming smaller. You know, there are accounts of tunas weighing 600 kilos. Which and you know being 11 feet high. You don't find fish like that anymore. The species exists, but it's no longer growing to that size. So there's a whole change that is happening of that sort as well. But Antarctica can be scary because of its weather and its remoteness. You know, so we used to go down on ships that were really old, that were not meant to be in the ice. So we've got stuck in ice. There's a time when I was a novice, like the first summer, and I misread the ice charts, and we got stuck in ice for 3 days. And the ship was not meant to be in ice. So we literally like...
You mean, when you say stuck in ice, you mean like ice formed around the ship? Like what
ice... So, I mean, just to give a little bit of the... So there's a Ross Sea in Antarctica, which is a big whaling ground. And the Ross Sea has a current system that's clockwise. And so the ice comes in and Ross Sea freezes over in the winters. But in the summer, it starts melting. But it starts melting with the current. So slowly the ice goes out of it. It doesn't suddenly empty out. And the way you read ice charts is that the satellite captures an image, like an infrared image. And then it shows you white and black. Black is open water, white is the ice. But it shifts very quickly or it's not very accurate if there's heavy cloud cover and all, which is very common. So I decided to cut into the Ross Sea, thinking it was an open patch. And slowly the ice got thicker and thicker and thicker. And then we were just in ice. And because the ice is shifting, you feel like, oh, I should just take a turn and go back out. But it doesn't happen like that. So we got stuck in this ice. And it's not like it freezes over, but it's just like the ice becomes so thick and so big and so like hard to get out of that you're pretty much like just stuck there until something starts moving. And then we started pushing through the ice. And we had this helicopter that was on the front and it was flying with its light on. And it was like, every time it would say, go right, there's a little bit of open water, it would like tilt. So we'd be like, okay, we have to go right. Then it would, because he could see from the height what he was seeing. And we had people in the hull of the ship, which was underwater, literally standing and telling us, oh, the like the metal is like bending with like hitting into the ice and stuff like that. So
God.
those are like scary moments for sure.